The AMT. Hello everybody, this is Brian Lehrer Live, where web video meets the issues. Beginning tonight with a bit of what it sounded like during last Thursday's mysterious stock market meltdown when the Dow suddenly dropped about 1,000 points before, just as mysteriously, bouncing back. Here is the trader and pundit who happened to be doing stock market play-by-play on the website stockmarketfunding.com when the on-screen graphics went south.
I told everybody that you couldn't stay overbought. This is what happens when you get overbought. And we told everyone in the Dow was coming. We told you that we didn't want to see you get hooked. And you may be hooked. Here you go. I'm told it's 835. The Dow ticker. Wow, almost 1,000 points. We call this a capitulation. Whoa, look at that NASDAQ 100. Whoa, look at that. Almost 1,000 points down. That's a big shakeout. They're going to probably halt trading. We can't stop the selling. Even Kramer doesn't know what to think. How do you like it? It's called 900 points down. We told you people not to get involved in that. We told you 2 weeks ago what happens to exuberance is that exuberance can make up the difference in 1 day.
You could have just flipped the graph over to get this guy's blood pressure, right? What's coming up on tonight's program? Budget cuts threaten the vast New York Public Library system. Scholar and library CEO Paul LeClerc will be here. We'll see an example of indispensable crowdsourcing as the wired-up citizenry tracks the oil spill damage, and a project that preserves languages threatened with extinction. No need for an expedition. There are perhaps 800 languages spoken right here in town. All this plus our video picks of the week, which include a reminder about the power of TV, even in the internet age.
Look at me! 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 No, don't look over there! There's nothing to look at over there! Look at me! Look at me! Look at me!
No, look at me! But now our lead story. That multi-billion-dollar budget hole that Mayor Bloomberg is trying to fill, scores of nonprofits that provide city services are competing to avoid further cuts. Among them, the New York Public Library. The system faces not a repeat of the $3 and $4 million reductions it has borne in the last 2 years, but about 10 times that, a $33 million proposed cut. What would such a loss mean for citizens who depend on the system of 90 libraries in Manhattan, the Bronx, and Staten Island? The library is busy reminding everyone of its importance, not just as a cultural institution, but a resource for finding jobs, learning English, and much more. In a minute, we will be joined by Paul LeClerc, President and CEO of the New York Public Library System. But to begin, let's see a library video that's both funny and biting.
New York City, 2010. The New York Public Library is facing the toughest city budget cuts in its history. During these troubling times, we called on an American icon, Tillman, the skateboarding dog, who agreed to lend his paws for support. After staff officials presented him with an honorary chew-friendly library card, Tillman got up to the point. I'll tell you what's at stake, Tillman. 6-day service eliminated. Those swell NYPL classes and programs terminated. That's right, Tillman. These are rough, rough times.
And joining us now, not the dog, the president and CEO of the New York Public Library System, Paul LeClerc. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Brian.
Why the dog?
Well, why the dog? One of the great tasks that we have now is to remind everybody, and especially to remind elected officials, of just how essential library services are to the welfare of New York City and to the welfare of individual New Yorkers. And today, we're going to be doing some of the typical kinds of things. We're going to be asking people to write to elected officials. But at the same time, we realize full well the power of the web, of information technology, to get messages out in very different kinds of ways. So we're going viral with our appeal to people to stand up and for us and drive home the message that New York needs libraries open now more than ever before.
Is that video going viral? Is it being viewed many times on YouTube?
Well, Tillman, and I shouldn't admit it, but I never heard of Tillman before 3 weeks ago. You may have, but you may be more connected. Anyway, Tillman has 20 million YouTube fans, and so he is a big deal. So the fact that
Tillman is the name of the dog.
Tillman is the name of the dog.
I never heard of him until tonight.
All right. And you're younger than I am. The fact that we can get lots of people associating with the idea that the New York Public Library needs defenders through the web, through Twitter, through individual accounts, through all the various kinds of social networks is really important. Now, I'll give you a sense of just how significant this is. 4 days ago, we launched our website advocacy program to keep the libraries open. And the tagline is, don't close the book on your libraries. So don't close the book on kids, don't close the book on seniors as citizens in libraries, and so on and so forth. So within 4 days' time, from Monday through this evening, we've generated out of that 10,000 letters. And that's just awesome. I mean, we have as a goal 40,000 letters in 6 weeks, but we've done 10,000 already in 4 days.
So that's a lot more than in past years as you learn the power of social media.
It's staggering. It's just amazing.
Who are the letters to?
Well, the letters have to be addressed to members of the City Council, and there were 21 of them in our 3 boroughs, as well as letters to the mayor's office. You know, what the mayor has done is to have proposed a reduction of very great magnitude for the New York Public Library system, and similar magnitude to the other 2 library systems in town, Brooklyn and Queens, which are independent of us and independent of each other. For us, that's a 25% reduction in our city operating support. Were that to pass, that means that we would have to lay off 730 people, which is about 35% of the workforce.
35%,
Right.
more than a third of the library workforce?
Mm-hmm. It means we would go from being open 6 days a week to being open 3 days a week. It would mean, in effect, a disenfranchisement of millions of people. Kids, senior citizens, teenagers, everybody. So one of the things that always troubles me is when people say, well, we still need libraries in 5 years, you know, with everything being on the web. A library is still going to be relevant in a place like New York or any American town or city. And I think that question is based on a whole lot of naivete, because the average New Yorker now...
And let me just say,
Okay.
I know, it's just the opposite. Because of the web, libraries are actually probably more valuable and more used than they've ever been before.
That's exactly the case. That's exactly the case. But also sometimes people who think in those terms are used to being able to buy whatever they want. So if they want a book, they can buy the book, you know, on Amazon or in a bookstore or however. If they need high-speed connectivity, they have it at home. But for us in the New York Public Library, 60% of the people who go to our branch libraries come from families in which the family income is less than $50,000 for the whole family. Now, such a family is very hard-pressed to buy books for its children, to buy books for its teenagers, to have a computer at home, to have high-speed connectivity at home. So the library is the only place for them to get the things that they need.
And I have a stat here from the Gates Foundation, William and Melinda Gates Foundation, that did a study of libraries and technology, and their stat is 60% of teenagers below the poverty line use libraries for computers for schoolwork.
For educational purposes, that's right. 54% of the seniors under the poverty line use computers in libraries for information on health and wellness. And 4% of the entire population of people under the poverty line, which is under $22,000, use computers in public libraries. So in the 5 boroughs of New York City last year, there were 40 million visits to public libraries. That's astonishing. I don't know that there's a city in the world that has its residents using libraries as much as New York.
How does that compare to the year before or 5 or 10 years before that?
Well, every time we get an advance in the number of days and hours public libraries are open, the numbers go up. They go down when we curtail hours. It's like a yo-yo. I mean, there's a totally tight correlation between access and patronage and visits.
And when the economy does badly?
When the economy does badly, the numbers go up as well because tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people come to libraries to look for jobs online or to be taught how to look for jobs online. Thousands come to us for help in writing a resume. Lots of people might know how to do a resume, but they don't know how to do a resume online. They don't know how to send a resume online.
Let me show everybody a video representation of this. By coincidence, we are in the same building here at CUNY TV with the New York Public Library Job Center. And we're going to see a video that we took earlier today of Kristen McDonough, who runs that New York Public Library Job Center.
The essence of what Job Search Central does is give people in transition a community to come to, where they can be independent if they want and find resources without help. They can meet one-on-one with an expert career coach. They can attend classes with other job seekers and learn everything from how to explore high-end databases to how to create mailing lists for their resume. Or they can listen to expert practitioners in a group talk about anything from using social media to practicing interview techniques to learning how to rebrand yourself. Technologically, you can get into these premier databases such as Vault and Wet Feet's career resources. You must come on site to use these databases, which gives you an insider's view of what the corporate culture is like in a particular company, and also gives you a sense of trends. What are the industries where there are growth opportunities? What are the educational and experiential backgrounds that you need to break into these industries? That kind of information is only available in these value-added databases, which you have to come to Job Search Central to use.
Let me emphasize that last point. These databases, which are expensive, we're not going to be able to sign up for them and afford them as individuals. Certainly unemployed people usually are not, but they are available for use at the library.
Totally for free. That's right. With people there to help you use them and to exploit them.
Another stat from the Gates Foundation, 30%, even I have a hard time believing this one, 30% of all internet use is from library computers. Think that's true?
Well, I didn't see that particular figure. I guess I saw one that said a third of the U.S. population over 14 uses internet connectivity in libraries.
So maybe that's it. Maybe that's it, and we got it somehow turned around.
Yeah. But in any case, at least half of the visitors who go to a public library in America are going there to use computers. Now, they might be taking books out as well. But half of all the visits, and last year there were 170 million visits to public libraries in America, and half of those people are using an internet connection at the library, mostly for educational purposes or social purposes, or employment or health. Those are the four main
and didn't
categories.
President Obama get his start as a community organizer through a library?
He did, before the internet existed. That is, he was graduating senior at Columbia. He wanted a job as a community organizer in Chicago. He came to the Mid-Manhattan Library, which is just a few blocks from here, and the librarian then gave him the books that had all the various agencies in Chicago that he could write to. Today that would be a database, and we would have to train somebody to have access to that particular database. And so he wrote to several that she had recommended, got his job. And he's on record as saying that he got his job through the New York Public Library.
So let's move on from the commercial here, because you know the value of libraries, I know the value of libraries, you know the value of libraries, but the city is in a fiscal crisis.
Right.
And I could bring onto this program a parade of good causes arguing their case. And here you are in the horrible position of having to compete with teachers, police officers, child welfare workers. How do you make the case?
Well, we make the case, and you're right, to begin with, you're right. It is uncomfortable, I think, for all of these organizations to feel in a competitive position with each other. I mean, who wants that? That's not healthy for anybody, and it's not healthy. I think it's not healthy for the city, basically. Each organization makes its own case according to its own set of arguments. My argument is really a simple one. A fundamental purpose of libraries is to build human capital through the kinds of access that we provide to information. Citizens, it may be a well-known story that Sonia Sotomayor loved Nancy Drew books, and they had a formative influence on her. Where did she get them? She got them at her local library in Brooklyn because she lived in a housing project. Her mother was a single mom. They didn't have the resources to buy books.
Brooklyn or the Bronx?
The Bronx,
right?
the Bronx. I meant the Bronx. I knew it.
I think it was Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Right. It could have been
Brooklyn.
It could have been any borough. What counts is the fact that she got those books in the library.
And we have a video. I'm going to interrupt you because we have a video. This is another library system promotional video to make their case, so we acknowledge that up front. But this one shows the Mott Haven Library in the South Bronx. Check it out.
Hi, I'm Katie Marin, and we thought our story would be best told from the heart of New York's neighborhoods. Our local libraries are on the front lines of the new economic reality. These days, people rely on their libraries more than ever before. This Mott Haven branch was built in 1905 as part of Andrew Carnegie's original gift to the city. Landmark in 1969, it has long been an oasis for this community in the South Bronx. Every day, people of all ages come in to find facts, surf the internet, watch a movie, take a class, check out books, or search for their next job. While these resources are essential, it's our staff who make us extraordinary. A friendly librarian adds an indispensable human element to the search for information that might otherwise be intimidating. In its 100-year history, this library has never been busier.
So we have Sonia Sotomayor from the Bronx, Ruth Bader Ginsburg from Brooklyn, Antonin Scalia from Queens, and now we may have Elena Kagan from Manhattan. As Robert Siegel said on All Things Considered, underrepresented on the Supreme Court is flyover country, which means Staten Island.
I was going to say Staten Island. Well, we'll have to produce somebody out of that island.
But of all these scare tactics, before you go, I don't mean scare tactics, I mean scary numbers. Closing 3 days a week out of the 6 that many libraries are open now, losing a third of the staff.
All of our libraries.
All of the libraries. It seems like every year the mayor proposes cuts, the city council restores the cuts or most of the cuts, and everybody breathes a sigh of relief. Is this all a scripted dance?
Well, it has been called the budget dance. It's not a new phenomenon. I've been going back and looking at the history of how budgets are built in New York, and it's been going on, I think, for at least 40 years. It does take a lot of energy to produce the kind of results that we need for the people that we serve. It would be easier if we did not have to go through this, but we do. Because the cause is right and because we have the welfare of the people foremost in our minds in advocacy.
We'll see what happens. The budget gets debated in the city between now and the end of June. Paul LeClerc, President and CEO of the New York Public Library. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian.
Here are this week's online video picks. Number 1, if you think the web is killing television, The Economist magazine would like to disabuse you of that notion.
This is how much TV Americans think they watch. They actually watch much more. This is how much online video people think they watch. They actually watch much less. Of course, young people are doing other things too. They watch DVDs, they read magazines, they play video games, they update their Facebook pages and listen to their iPods. But teenagers are watching more TV than ever. There's been a huge rise in multitasking. The average American teenager now spends 7.5 hours with some kind of media device each day. But in that 7.5 hours, they consume 10 hours and 45 minutes of media. Another striking thing is the strength of old-fashioned live TV. It doesn't seem to matter how much control people get over their televisions, nearly everybody still approaches TV in the same way. First, they see what's being broadcast at that moment. In Britain, this accounts for about 90% of TV viewing. If they don't find anything they want to watch live, they see what they've recorded on their digital video recorder, sometimes called a personal video recorder. If they don't find anything recorded, they'll watch something on demand. This accounts for, at most, 3% of TV viewing.
Interesting stats, and hopeful if you're, say, a TV executive. Of course, that doesn't save the thousands of jobs that have disappeared from New York's television industry because so much advertising has evaporated into space or cyberspace. Still, as this Beth Fulton video argues, TV possesses certain chemical properties that the Internet never will.
Look at me! 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 No, don't look over there! There's nothing to look at over there! Look at me! Look at me! Look at me! Are you looking at me? Is everybody looking at me? Do I have everyone's attention? Don't get the wrong idea. I'm not trying to take over your life. You need what? What do you need? What do you need? You need to what? Go to the bathroom? Fine. Get up, go to the bathroom, come back, look at me. You need what? You need to get something to eat? Fine. Get up, go to the kitchen, get something to eat, come back, look at me. You need to what? Sleep? Fine. Get up, go to bed, go to sleep, get up, come back, look at me. Okay, so we have an agreement. You will do what you absolutely have to do, and when you're done, you will come back and look at me. Don't worry about your schedule. I am here for you. I am here for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I am here for you. I am here for you. You need me. I'm here. Fair and foul, thick and thin. I am here for you. I am here for you. People try to tell you I'm bad. You tell them that I am here for you. 24 hours a day, fair and foul, thick and thin. I am here for you. I am here for you. People try to tell you I'm bad. You know what it sounds like to me? Sour grapes. You see what I... No, don't look over there. There's nothing to look at over there. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. I've got stuff you wouldn't believe. Danger, sex, action, death, thrills, comedy, all here, all in the next 8 minutes. Can you believe it? You can't believe it. You can't believe it? It's unbelievable. You can't believe it because it's unbelievable. It's a miracle. Just keep looking at me. Just keep looking at me. Just keep looking at me. Look 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 at me.
Breathe. That was Beth Fulton's video setting of Todd Alcott's poem, Television is a Drug. So remember, kids, television is bad, except this show. Video pick number 3. Pennsylvania, like every other state, is deep in debt, so it's offering a tax amnesty period to residents who owe the state money. But if the word amnesty sounds friendly and forgiving, this carrot comes with a stick just in case.
Your name is Tom. You live just off of 5th Street. Nice car, Tom. Nice house. What's not so nice is you owe Pennsylvania $4,212 in back taxes. Listen, Tom, we can make this easy. Pay online by June 18th, and we'll skip your penalty and take half off your interest. Because, Tom, we do know who you are.
That from Philadelphia, now the city of big brotherly love. The Windy City has the same problem we do here, people making bad choices about what to eat. So this is from an online video contest called One Chicago, One Nation. It's Abnormality by D. Nick, the microphone misfit.
Freedom from disease and abnormality, cause you don't want to have this stuff affecting your reality. Come on. I was chilling with my brother Super Enlight. We were shooting the breeze, getting our mind right, laughing, talking politics and current events, bugging out about a lot of things that don't make sense. And this Super all of a sudden got an urge from his tummy. He looked up and said, Joe D, I'm kinda hungry, help yourself. In the kitchen there was food in the cabinet. He opened up the cabinet and said, I ain't having it. There ain't nothing in here except for junk food. If I eat this it'll put me in a junk mood. No disrespect, D, don't mean to be rude, but Lay's chips, French dip, come on man, dude. I had no idea you were eating like this, why would you ever put that on your grocery list? This so-called food ain't meant for a human. If I eat this, then my bowels won't be moving. Come on, Super, don't you think you jumping the gun? I just eat this when I'm sitting back and having some fun. I don't really need to eat nothing organically grown unless you want to make your body cancer's permanent home. Eating healthy is the first step in disease prevention. It also cuts down on hypertension. There's a few more things I'd like to mention if you'll sit back and pay attention. You want freedom from disease?
And video pick number 5, the comedian Bill Murray thanks construction workers who completed the building of a literary center called Poets House at 10 River Terrace near Chambers Street and the Hudson River. He thanks them in verse.
Finally ends, he is still barking, sitting there in the oboe section, barking, his eyes fixed on the conductor who is entreating him with his baton, while the other musicians listen in respectful silence to the famous barking dog solo, that endless coda that first established Beethoven as an innovative genius. They get worse. Okay? So if you want to lie down or get sick, take a sick day, do it now. Okay, this is for the shorter attention span crowd. Back over here. Cell phones. This is called Poet's Work by Laureen Nidecker. Accent on the first syllable. Grandfather advised me, learn a trade. I learned to sit at desk and condense. No layoff from this condensery. See, that's short. Got that done. We're getting paid by the poem here, so that's where it's piecework. Now we have an opportunity for one of you to step forward and do some of your own original poetry. Come on, don't be shy. Come on, don't be shy.
And those are this week's online video picks. This is Brian Lehrer Live, where web video meets the issues. Now on to the oil spill in the Gulf and the grassroots effort to document the damage using the web via what's called crowdsourcing. One environmental advocacy group, the Louisiana Bucket Brigade, has created an oil spill crisis map and invited everyone to help fill in the details by contributing reports of how the spill is impacting life in the Gulf. Another group, Crisis Commons, an international coalition of volunteers, is working on a mobile app to help people document the spill as well. Joining me to discuss the usefulness of crowdsourcing in disasters is Anna Curran of Crisis Commons, New York City, and via Skype from New Orleans is Ann Rolfs, founding director of the Louisiana Bucket Brigade. Thank you both so much for joining us. And Ann in New Orleans, let's go right to you. Talk about the Bucket Brigade and the concept of crowdsourcing.
Well, if you're at a party and somebody shouts free beer, how everybody will run to that place and try to get some free beer.
I've never noticed that. I've never noticed that.
We're modifying this for a higher purpose to say, hey, over here, there's oil on shore. Over here, there are oystermen and shrimpers out of work, to get the attention that we need, to get the response that we need.
So let's take a look at the map. Maybe you can walk us through these dots of various colors that we'll see and what they mean.
Yeah, you can see below the heading of BP oil spill, there's yellow and various shades of blue and purple. And those simply mean oil on wildlife, or people are experiencing a health impact, or really in one of the worst case scenarios, somebody's livelihood is at risk.
And down at the bottom of the map, you list incidents. We can show that briefly. It's not as interesting to look at as the map itself, but tell us about that list and how it's generated.
That list is generated by people on the ground here along the Gulf Coast. So we've got everything from tar balls washing up on shore to seafood prices going up in Florida, back here to Louisiana to oil on shore. And it's just regular people along the Gulf Coast who are typing or texting in reports of what's happening on the ground.
And that's the crowdsourcing. The crowd, meaning anybody, serves as a reporter,
Yes.
as a source, and posts the information. Who's looking at this besides you? What good is it doing?
Well, the good news is Lisa Jackson Facebooked it last night. And
She's
she
the
said,
director of the EPA, the federal EPA.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Unfortunately, we're now on a first-name basis with Lisa Jackson. We wish we weren't. But yes, we had a session with her yesterday, and some Tulane professors who are our partners explained the idea, and she was so excited about it that she put it on her Facebook page. And what we hope then is that this tool will inform the response.
Anna, thank you for your patience. Tell us, what is Crisis Commons?
So Crisis Commons is a global network of tech-savvy volunteers that come together after a crisis and work on different projects to aid with the relief efforts.
How does it work?
So Crisis Commons is based on a camp-type model. So essentially, after the quake in Haiti, lots of different cities organized these crisis camps, and we would put out a call and say, you know, if you have internet, if you're internet savvy, if you have technological skills, please come in and donate your time. And there were different organizations that would contact us and say, you know, we have a strong need to develop this particular tool, but we don't necessarily have the resources within our organization or the expertise. And we would work in partnership with different government agencies, different nonprofit organizations to build a lot of situational awareness tools. One of the projects that we worked on in New York was a website, and it's up and still operating. It's called it's called reliefoversight.org, and it's an opportunity to create profiles of all of the different organizations that are working on the ground in Haiti, and it gives information like the history, if the organization has historically been working in Haiti, and also allows for sit reps to be uploaded. So that is the crowdsource component of that particular project.
And how are you responding to the oil spill?
So Crisis Commons is responding to the oil spill. They're in the process of developing a mobile app so that folks can go out and actually document their experience of the oil spill via SMS or pictures, and uploading it into the application, which will then publish the information on the web for anyone to read.
Who can do this, and how is it used?
Who can contribute?
Yes.
Anyone can contribute. So you know, that's part of the beauty of both Crisis Commons as an organization and a lot of the platforms that we work to develop. Really, it's meant to be open, inclusive, and accessible. You know, the inspiration really is to create more communication and more transparency, and really invite anyone who has passion and wants to contribute and help, you know, to sort of connect and harness that energy.
And you must get a flood of contributions, not to mix spill metaphors, but you got so many just on the views that we were looking at before. How do you sort through them to figure out what's important to respond to?
Well, an important aspect of this is that we're not first responders, and we tell everybody that. We're gathering information, but we read the reports and then see if it seems to match up with what we understand to be going on in the region, if it resonates with other reports that we're getting, and if it is, then we verify it. Of course, that's a really important part of this entire process.
Do people just upload text of location and descriptions? Do they upload photographs? How varied are your media?
All of the above. You can upload a video, you can upload a photograph, but I think it's really important to point out that that in this situation, and I think in a lot of disaster situations, we're dealing with people who may not have access to even a cell phone that's going to work. So a very important part of our program with this map is good old-fashioned shoe leather, to be out there talking to people with paper and pencil, if you can imagine, those archaic instruments, to get the story of those who may not actually have access to even something as simple as a cell phone with a texting ability.
And I gather you also work with a group called Grassroots Mapping, which uses kites and balloons to get aerial images of the spill. In fact, we have some images of that. Let's put that up for our viewers to see and tell us what we're looking at here.
Well, those guys are great. It seems as if they also, like Crisis Commons, have a network of people around the country. I can't see the image, but I know they were out in the Gulf. And there we go. Oh, that's some oil or dispersant on water. You know, they got here and they were immediately in the water where the action is. And we so appreciate people coming in and really collaborating with us. But these are their pictures shot with balloons. Their idea is that a Google map does not always map the areas of concern. Sometimes it's a bit blurry. So they're getting here some before shots of how our wetlands look. And we hope they stay this way, but they may become inundated with oil, and these are some of the before shots. These are some shots of the guys in the boats, and I'm not sure what that is. Oh, there they go. They're flying. That's Stu from Berkeley. They're flying their gear. I mean, who knew there was this whole network of balloonists and kite flyers out there? But there are.
And Anna, I understand both your organizations use software called Ushahidi. Is that the name of it?
Yes.
What's special about that?
So Ushahidi was initially developed in 2007 in Kenya by a group of bloggers in order to allow people to crowdsource and document. Ushahidi actually means witness. And to document the violence in response to a contested presidential election. And since that event, the software actually has been reappropriated and used extensively in terms of disaster relief. So after the quake in Haiti, a gentleman by the name of Patrick Meyer from Tufts, he and a group called the Crisis Mappers worked also in concert with Crisis Commons in order to implement the Ushahidi software and create situational awareness for disaster response in Haiti.
Can you measure the impact that you had after the earthquake in Haiti?
Can I personally measure, or can one measure?
Can one?
You know, that's a great question. I don't have any metrics in terms of, you know, how. One of the things that we really look at is creating greater communication and coordination among organizations. So that's something that can be very difficult to actually measure. You know, it's not necessarily something as straightforward as measuring a visit to a website. You know, so in terms of specifics on that, I don't have anything good for you. I'm sorry.
And you're in New Orleans. What's the latest? We hear that the BP effort to cap the spill, to contain it, has failed. Now they're trying a plan B, or maybe it's a plan E or F or G, to cap it in a smaller way. What's happening as far as you can tell? What's really the situation as it affects the people there?
Well, we only wish that there were a plan, even if it were a plan Z, but I don't think they've got one. That's pretty apparent. The situation is really catastrophic, and I don't mean to paint too dire a picture, but what other word is there when there are people whose life depends on going out in that Gulf of Mexico? There's a large Vietnamese community here, 20,000 people. They make up 50% of the fleet that goes out into the Gulf and fishes and shrimps. This is a community actually at a standstill because they cannot go out and earn their money. And so, you know, we don't really know what the future holds. There's a lot of government down here. We appreciate it, but even with the best work by the administration, I don't know that there's any silver lining or any possibilities out of this calamity.
Poor New Orleans after Katrina now being hit with this. Let me ask you a political question, because some people are trying to paint this as Obama's Katrina. Is there any sense that you have that the administration failed to respond quickly or effectively?
People down here don't feel like that. I think probably the mistake that was made was listening to BP and believing BP's projections. As is typical with the oil companies, they absolutely downplayed the release at the beginning, and they not only said that they had it under control, but they underestimated how much oil was coming out. And so the Obama administration may have made the same mistake that a lot of people do, which is to believe BP. And that's, I think, the moral of this story, is that we certainly can't believe these guys, and there needs to be a lot more rigorous oversight. The administration has been here. I've met with the EPA administrator a couple of times already. They're present. They're on the ground. There's no comparison between this and Katrina as far as government response.
What do you think the implications are of BP and Halliburton now fighting with each other over culpability?
Isn't it beautiful? I mean, you've got to love that. The implications are that I guess they will continue to do that and wrestle it out in court. Of course, our concern is that the liability will be delayed and delayed, as happened with the Exxon Valdez. It'd be great if these companies would fight to the death. I don't think that will happen. We can only hope that there will be some greater transparency and accountability because of this situation. Usually I work in the refining field with gross violations, and we are going to work to get the spotlight on the refining industry in this state.
Do you want there to be no more oil drilling off your coastline, or is that an excessive response?
I don't think that's feasible. I mean, if you spend an afternoon down here, you see the infrastructure we have. That's not possible. But certainly, we don't want that moratorium to be lifted. We don't want other states to have to suffer like we've suffered. Again, this should be a cautionary tale for everybody.
And how do people access Crisis Commons if they want to see what you're doing or to participate?
Yeah, so crisiscommons.org is the website. And if folks are interested in getting involved here in New York City, they can email me. It's anna@crisiscommons.org. And the website lists all of the projects that are ongoing at this time. And there's actually a wiki page for every single project. So you can go to crisiscommons.org and see the listing for the mobile app that's being developed. And it actually will give you contact information for the team leaders. And if people have skills, if they'd like to contribute, they can reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to put them in touch with the right people, or they also could just go to the wiki.
That's great. And Ann, for the Louisiana Bucket Brigade, how can we see what you're doing?
Go to the map, oilspill.labucketbrigade.org, or our website, labucketbrigade.org. It's all there.
Thank you both very much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, New York, haven for endangered languages. This is Brian Lehrer Live.
It's one of the many ways to fight osteoarthritis pain. For more information on managing pain, go to fightarthritispain.org.
Take my hand and start a brand new day. And together as one we'll start to see some change.
Underneath everything we are, underneath everything we do, we are all people. Connected, interdependent, united. And when we reach out a hand to one, we can influence the condition of all. That's what it means to live united.
To be a great dad is the most important job in a man's life. But it doesn't have to be hard. All it takes is a few minutes of your time, because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
Ma, guess what? I went back to college. No, I didn't quit my job. I'm finishing my degree with the CUNY Online Bachelor's in Business. I interact online with real City University of New York faculty on a schedule that fits my busy life. Ma, you should look who's teaching at CUNY. And it all leads to a high-quality Bachelor of Science degree in business. I can attend class anywhere, anytime. Yes, Mom, even at your house Friday night for dinner.
The CUNY Online Baccalaureate. get back to business.
This is Brian Lehrer Live, where web video meets disappearing languages. To countless immigrants, New York is the place where you try to let go of the past, to move on and up. But to researchers of endangered languages, this city is a rich archive where the past can be discovered and archived. Joining us tonight are two people who are enthralled with this living archive of languages, Daniel Kaufman and Juliette Blevins. They're directors of the Endangered Language Alliance Project. In 2008, Daniel founded the Urban Field Station for Linguistic Research here in New York, and Juliette Blevins is helping to build an endangered languages program that will be debuting this fall at the CUNY Graduate Center. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Tell us first about the field station. You go into the field, where and do what?
The field station was something I started 2 years ago upon the realization that there were so many endangered languages being spoken in New York, and so many linguists actually in New York, and there was very little connection between the two, and nobody was systematically trying to take count of these languages. And so what I did was I began to take my students to meet these people and to work with them over the course of a semester to start describing their languages. So that was a kind of informal idea that I had 2 years ago, working with my students mainly, and everybody that heard about it said, you know, why didn't we think of that, and that's a great idea. And so slowly it built up to the Endangered Language Alliance.
Juliette, give us an overview of the types and the number of endangered languages that can be found here in New York.
Well, we're just beginning to understand the diversity of New York City. To be perfectly honest, the census material that's been gathered in the past is probably not extremely accurate, because individuals are asked to write in the language they speak at home, and often if someone speaks a language that's not spoken by many people, they won't write it in, thinking that no one will have ever heard of it, which is probably true in many cases. So we're estimating, based on the census data, for instance, that there are were counted 180 or so languages just in Queens alone. That probably there are about 800 different languages spoken in the city of New York, and of those, at least half are endangered.
We have an example of one of those endangered languages called Garifuna. Do you want to set this up for us before we see a little, either one of you, before we see a little Garifuna spoken and hear it a little bit?
Say the language name. Garifuna.
Garifuna with a stress on the second syllable. It's a community which is actually quite large here in New York. There are people that originally came from Africa and now speak an Arawakan language. They live in Honduras, Guatemala, Belize, and a few in Nicaragua. And they're actually quite a vibrant and living culture and language, but the youth are not picking up the language as they did in the past. So in Belize, the younger people, and Honduras, younger people are speaking English and Spanish more than Garifuna. And it's an extremely unique language, and extremely unique people, really nothing even similar to it anywhere in the world.
So you won't understand this unless you speak Garifuna, but here's an example, here's just a little sample really of this language being spoken. Listen.
Gadrian unirahe. Alejandro Linhaba, Binha Irumuluma Gelon e Orele. Jairo Linhaba, Inia Golo Livima, Daisy, Nestor, Anya Golo Havima, Maria Hero Daisy, Binha Tirahi, Maria e Jairo, Uro Lirahi. Nestor Rugali no Mamunad, Mamaria Idu.
All right, just a little sample of a language that most of you have never heard articulated. Who was that, by the way?
That's my friend Loreda Guiti, who lives in Manhattan, one of the almost 100,000 Garifuna living in New York.
Why do we care? Maybe that's too obvious a question. But if people stop using a language through the natural course of events, why do we care to preserve it?
Well, I think the key term that you used is natural. Very often people stop using their language in unnatural situations. In this country, as many people know, There were 250 Native American languages spoken when the Europeans arrived. Those languages, most of them, are no longer spoken, and the reasons are highly unnatural.
Indeed. But is it different in the case of immigrants who come here voluntarily and pick up English and eventually drop the home country's language?
If you consider it completely voluntarily, but in one sense, the reason that immigrants come here in the first place is actually an extension of the colonization that happened hundreds of years ago. In the case of the Garifuna, which we just saw, they were driven out by the English, they were driven out by the French, and now they're fighting the Spanish government in Honduras and those places. So you can look at it as voluntary, but these cultures are under tremendous pressure, economic and social pressure in their own countries. Which is really all part of the same. If you look at it more holistically, it really is part of the same movement.
And what do we lose when we lose the language? Maybe take Garifuna as an example, if you can, or anything as an example. Certain kinds of words or expressions or human emotions even that may exist in a culture because of particular circumstances. What do we lose?
I think we lose massive amounts of knowledge. Knowledge that's been passed on for thousands of years through human culture, knowledge about the environment, about ecology, about art, creativity, and in fact, we don't know how much knowledge we're losing in many cases. There are parts of the world, Amazonia, New Guinea, where indigenous people actually have information that will probably lead us out of things like the oil spill we saw in an earlier segment here. There's a lot of scientific knowledge. We just don't know how much we're losing. So people have compared this. When one language seems to be dying about every 2 weeks now. This massive language extinction going on in this century. And imagine the Louvre or the Smithsonian just going under in one day. I think that's what we lose when we lose a language.
We're going to show another example of an endangered language being spoken here in New York, but I understand you have a great story about finding the guy who we're going to hear.
It was a little misconstrued, I have to say, because people contacted me afterwards telling me that Mamuju is really not that endangered. There still are, thousands of people speaking it.
Mamuju is the language.
Mamuju is the language spoken in Indonesia. The reason I couldn't find anyone in Indonesia was because there were
You
riots.
went to Indonesia looking for Mamuju?
Among other languages. I found these other languages. I didn't find Mamuju because there were riots at the time because of the Danish cartoon. Which didn't allow me to get into the actual Mamuju region. But nonetheless, it's a language just like the others that's not being picked up by the children. Even though it has thousands of speakers today, it won't have those numbers in a generation.
So you came home to New York, a little in despair. I couldn't find anybody who speaks Mamuju after traveling halfway around the world. And
was at my wife's cousin's wedding with a man sitting next to me from the island. He told me he was from Sulawesi, and I said, wow, where are you from? And he told me the name of his language, and I couldn't believe it because he was the speaker of the one language that I could not find when I actually was looking for the language on the other side of the world. So that was a New York story.
Here he is.
Yang pisang teh tantarana teh ampe kahar melapor aku di panglima itu waktu ya kawilaram mo tapi waktu na melapor ya nagenggay na sang naalanasan senjatana ya udah gitu ni paruatan tetu ya apa itu senjatana meron to yan akan tiang.
Why do you produce those with subtitles in the language itself?
For several reasons. First of all, just so people who are not linguists or experts can actually make sense of the stories. And the other reason is that the speakers of the languages themselves take on an entirely new perspective on their own language when they see that it can be written just like any other language, when they see that it's equal to any other language, that it can be on TV. People have this notion that their languages oftentimes are impossible to write down, that there's something about them that's simply unformalizable.
We have 30 seconds. Tell me two really quick things. Does the internet help to keep these languages alive, some of them? And what will you be teaching in your CUNY class related to this?
The internet is definitely a great tool for keeping languages alive. I've done some work with Native Americans in California We have online dictionaries, we have songs online, lots of learning materials for the younger generations. With the Endangered Language Alliance, after getting a bit of publicity here in New York, we've had hundreds of people writing in to volunteer support. So it's been great.
And so you're going to teach what? Different languages or language preservation techniques?
Linguistics is a very large field. In order to make a video like this and to understand the structure of the language in a way that allows it to be taught, to lend support to communities here, you need certain skills, and so we will be teaching those skills.
Thank you for your work. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Finally tonight, every baseball fan's dream, catching a home run ball in someplace like Dodger Stadium and catching yourself doing it on tape. This is from prosports.com.
I got it! Yeah! Bobby! Throw it back! I'll throw it back.
He just got shown in the Jumbotron.
8 years over.
He just got shown in the Jumbotron. Yeah.
I can't. It's too late now. It's too late now.
Keep it. Great catch.
Thank you.
You're on a roll. I mean,
yeah.
That's your. I don't.
Yeah.
You're the man, bud.
There's no way I got a good shot of it. I had to jump at the height of my leap to get it. I didn't get a good shot of it.
You're the man, bud.
Hey, I just got home. Here's the ball. So I got a really big mark on it there from where McCutcheon hit it. And check out what I did in batting practice earlier, practicing for the home run catch.
You should spread that around. Here we go. I'll take it. I got it. I got it. Yeah, Dodger Films. Careful, buddy. Do you want a ball? There you go. It's yours. It's Chris, too.
So I guess the amazing thing is that the guy actually practiced videotaping himself catching home run balls. But that's how you make it to Carnegie Hall, or better yet, on to Brian Lehrer Live. And that's it for this week's show. We're here live Wednesday nights at 7:30 or anytime online at brianlehrer.tv. And tune into my daily radio show, 10 a.m. on WNYC Radio. Tomorrow morning, guest host Jamie Floyd asks, must you have been a judge to be a good Supreme Court justice? That's 10 a.m. on WNYC 93.9 FM and AM 820. Have a great night.